Okay, first and foremost, for the sake of those who do not know what Startup Stout is, we are a startup ecosystem development and advocacy organization, as well as a community of founders. We started this 10 years ago because, yes, thank you. We started this 10 years ago because we felt that it was important to not just decentralize the digital ecosystem, like you've heard a couple of people say, but because if that happens, Nigeria will be greater. How many of you agree with me? So how many of you agree with me that if all of Nigeria's regions and facets, states, becomes economically viable, that Nigeria will become much more prosperous? Hello. And so, with the digital economy is not just the fastest growing, it's the fastest creator of wealth today. And for the first time in our history as a nation, the digital economy is contributing much more to our GDP than oil and gas. How many of you saw that? How many of you saw the news? Hello? For the first time in our history as a country, the digital economy is contributing much more to our GDP, more than oil and gas, which happens to be our main economic mainstay. So, and this is a sector that is barely developed. So you can imagine what would happen if it is properly developed. And we're speaking about the future. So one of the things we decided to do, but let me just share that if you cannot grow what you do not count. Hello? So, working on that principle that you can't grow what you don't count. I don't know if anybody got that, but let me rephrase it. Maybe I'm losing some people. If you don't take stock, you will not know whether you're growing or you're decreasing. So when we say you can't grow what you don't count, we're simply saying if you don't know where you are today, you probably won't know where you will be tomorrow, because there's no basis for judging, right? So we decided to start an ecosystem mapping project last year, 2024. The goal of that project was every year going forward, we would be able to collect data from the ecosystem and compare those data with the data we already have and be able to tell whether the region is growing or is declining. So we started it last year. We didn't release the reports from last year for some reasons, but this year we've done it again and we'll release the report this time. But before we release the report, there's some interesting stuff in the report that we already see, and we thought it was important to highlight them. So I'm going to share a bit of this for you to see. This is just so you can see on the screen. Is it possible to show the difference between last year and this year? Can we see the comparison last year and this year? So we have, so in 2024, yep. So this is the 2025 count. Okay, just go back to the next slide. Let me not confuse you. Go back to the next sheet. All right, so you can see by count, you have Port Harcourt leading in terms of number of startups. Of course, you see a number there. This number is representative because it's data. We'll continue to grow the data, but this is data, so it's representative. But what I can say is that when it comes to the cities across the region, what city leads in terms of number of startups, right? We have Port Harcourt leading, and then you have Enugu. And this also gives you an indication of which cities are best, in quote, to build startups in. And this is where I want to do a bit of I just like to say something here. This is, for us, we intentionally intentionally try to induce competition among the states in the region. And we want the states, especially the government, to do better in terms of supporting the ecosystem. So, very soon, we want to see this report being a basis for judging certain things and see government taking credit for growing the numbers of startups in their states. So the next thing, so when you go to this regional level, at the regional level, you will see that, please go to South. Yes, just go. So this is how the states perform at the regional level. You see that in the South, you can see that Port Harcourt dwarfs almost all the states by miles. So by indication, the other states within the region needs to pick up, right? Paul is seated somewhere here, right? Aha. So the other states within the region needs to pick up. But interestingly, when you go to the southeast, it seems like there's a big competition apart from Ebonyi State. Okay? It seems like there's a big competition amongst the states in the southeast. And this is actually not surprising because, of course, the southeast is very entrepreneurial, like in DNA, right? So I'm not surprised with this data. Now, but let's talk about the funds raised. Scroll up a bit. No, you're going past the fundraise. I want to stop at that. Now, when it comes to funding raised, let's start with the sectors that raised the most funding. This year, we're seeing the clean tech space raising more funding. So what does this mean in effect? Investors are pouring money into clean tech. And so what is clean tech? For those of you that are new to this thing, clean tech is basically the renewable energies of, your inverters and all of those people providing solutions around those things. Investors are pouring money into clean tech. And in Africa, across Africa also, clean tech is also, investors are also pouring money in clean tech. So I'm not surprised that investors are putting money in clean tech within the region as well. Okay? Now, of course, fintech will always be there. Then let's look at the contribution to employment. So compared to, So in terms of top sectors' contribution to employment, you have clean tech, then you have GovTech, you have FinTech, you have AgriTech. Now, for context, last year, even though we didn't release the report, last year, I think we had, I don't know if you can show that, but I think we had AgriTech contributing, EduTech and AgriTech contributing most to employment, but receiving the least amount of funding. So that's what you had last year, okay? But I think that has changed this year. with the sector that is receiving the most funding, also contributing most to employment. Okay. Let's keep going. All right, hold on. Let's talk about gender distribution. Now, you can see startups within the region are still employing more male, but the ratio is not far apart, right? Now, in terms of what type of experience they have, and I think this is an improvement from last year, more founders building within the region actually have some level of corporate experience. Okay? So those are some of the things we were trying to track. Okay? Now, let's go up again. So in terms of enterprise support, this year we had more people responding as incubators. But as of last year, you had almost 60% of the respondents as digital skills hub. That's basically training digital skills. The implication of this, obviously, when it comes to employment, is that there were a lot of digital skills that the region could not employ. So, and even the people who had the skills and were working from the region were working remotely for companies in Lagos and some other places. And that was what we found last year. The story hasn't changed much this year. Okay, let's go up a bit more. No, let's go up a bit. Up. So I wanted to see, okay, keep going. Hold on. So in the final report, you'll be able to find the skills within the different states, the most dominant skills within the different states. But this is an overview of what the skills within the region look like. A lot of people within the region are mostly into social media marketing, right? Followed by digital advertising, somewhat related to social media marketing, and then video editing, graphics design. What we found last year was that you had more programmers in Enugu. Hello? So you had more programmers in Enugu. You had more graphic artists in Anambra, in Awka, than anywhere else. So those were the distributions we found last year. And I don't think a lot has changed from that. And you had more digital marketers in Port Harcourt. That's what we had last year, and it hasn't changed much this year. Okay? Let's see. I will skip this other stuff, go up a bit. I wanted to talk about, okay, so this is a lot of the people who have jobs. By the way, over 60% of the skills do not have, more than 60% of the skills do not have jobs. Right? And those of them that have jobs, almost 70% of them work remotely. And of this 70%, over half of them work for companies outside of the region. So what is their employment status? Only 22% is fully employed. Welcome, sir. Only 22% is fully employed. We have 36.1% and as freelancers. And of course, when we say freelancers, I'm sure you know what that means. Hello? No offense meant, right? But once you report freelancer, I understand, we know what it means. So typically we categorize you in the bracket of unemployed until no. It's not a fair one, but it's not a fair one. But practically, if we're being real, for in government circles, it's easy to just say, hey, freelancers. But in real terms, okay, they are basically in quote unemployed. Okay, we'll come back to that. Maybe in your session. We'll discuss it in your session. Yes. I agree. I agree with you. We are getting there. Because you have to look at the quality of the gig that they are doing. So you're making my point. Sorry, guys. Not unemployed. Okay, for the sake of this, let's agree with you and move forward. Okay, so this is what we have. Okay, so when we release the report, we can have this argument publicly, right? And you can share your opinions. But for now, this is what we have, and this is how we think about it, right? So let's go up and see. I think I wanted to share who the founders are, who are the key government people, who are the key support organizations that are helping or supporting founders within the region, and who are the investors investing as well. So I want to be able to see if we can get to that. Okay, guys. Okay, don't worry. For sake of time, we'll release the full report later.
Thank you. Your report is really fantastic, and I was discussing with her now. I think she will talk to you later about that, publishing this in a proper, this thing probably on your website or something. But I wanted to ask, the data collected, Startup South is it primary source or it was a secondary source data? Mixed, primary and secondary source data. I personally want to commend your effort. In fact, I think this is one of the first I've seen in the regions, right? To really take the effort to look at the region properly and dissect it. It's a commendable work you did here, and I really implore you to take it more deeper. Thank you very much. Especially in the breakdown of that on-site, off-site hybrid.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so thank you so much for listening. We would release the report immediately after the conference, and feel free to, write about it and break it down and come back and tell us how badly we've done, because that's what we want to hear. We want to hear the bad, where we missed it, so that we can do better. Because in the end, like I keep saying, wherever you cannot measure, cannot grow. And so if we are an ecosystem development organization, then we must be able to measure the ecosystem that we're developing over time. And so this is what we're starting with this report. And I'd like to thank you for listening.